Joker 2 Folie à Deux has been an absolute disaster for Warner Brothers, with original box office projections being originally 70 million at the domestic box office, dropping significantly to between 45 to 47, and then when the movie releases, it goes down even further and doesn't even meet those projections, coming in at 37 million domestically. You know that you automatically have a failure on your hands. And there were many red flags that led up to this disastrous opening. Now, a lot of people, myself included, didn't think a Joker 2 movie was necessary, but considering the first movie was made on a $55 million budget and made $1 billion for Warner Brothers, they'd be stupid not to make a Joker 2, and a lot of people have pointed that out. However, considering they ballooned that budget to like $200 million for Joker 2, not only did they have to make that money back and then some, the sequel really needed to resonate with fans and be accepted by fans of the first Joker movie in order for it to be successful, and needless to say, it did not resonate with people. Domestically, Folie à Deux opened behind The Flash, The Marvels, and Morbius, all of which were bombs at the box office. It is complete audience rejection, says one source close to the film. And why would it not be? When you have articles like this being written about Joker 2. Joker Folie à Deux has a message for fans. Go fuck yourself. The Joker was always an all-purpose agent of chaos, but what he really wanted to do was sing. A lot of people are placing the blame on this sequel being a musical. It wasn't advertised as a musical. And if you were just a person going and seeing this film based on the trailers, you wouldn't know that this was a musical. As for Arthur, he's practically catatonic, and instead of telling jokes, he's the butt of a big cosmic one. Yes, this whole movie, Joker 2, Folie à Deux, completely rips apart the character of Arthur Fleck and the Joker, which if you're going to make a follow-up to a character that people actually liked, I don't think it would be in your best interest to give the audience a completely different character from the one that they liked initially. And yeah, if you're going to make a sequel, it's best that you do not turn the fans into the villains of the sequel. But who is to blame for this movie? Well, according to Warner Brothers, it's Todd Phillips. They are throwing Todd Phillips completely under the bus and saying, hey, this movie, it is all this guy, because he would not budge when it came to Joker 2. Right here, insider information reveals what led to Joker 2's disastrous opening, pointing the finger at Todd Phillips. His refusal to work closely with Warner Brothers in DC, retained nearly absolute creative control over the movie, refused to film in London for a 20% cost reduction in favor of LA, ignored notes from DC studio heads James Gunn and Peter Safran, refused to test screen Joker 2. This is very rare that you will not test screen your movie, because typically you want to see and gauge the audience's reaction to your movie, and that way you would know whether you need to make some changes or not. Them not test screening Joker 2 completely backfired on them. Pushed to debut the film at the Venice Film Festival against studios' plans. Now at the Venice Film Festival, that also gave people a little bit of pause, because once this movie came out, we all had heard that Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga and Todd Phillips got an 11-minute standing ovation at the Venice Film Festival. But here it is, and now it's had a lot of people going back to the Venice Film Festival and really looking at Joaquin Phoenix and kind of gauging his body language. Because here it says Joaquin Phoenix had had enough clapping and bowed out at the theater at around 9 minutes. He just said his piece, said thank you, and then took off. He left. He left before the 11-minute standing ovation had ended, and he left Lady Gaga there all by herself. And that caused a lot of people to sort of like re-examine what had happened here. And some people are thinking that he's telling Lady Gaga about the movie, that he's telling her it's horrible. Right here. It's horrible. And that's why she keeps shaking her head no. Some people have analyzed this right here and think that Joaquin Phoenix is telling Lady Gaga it's horrible, which is why he peaced out before the standing ovation had ended. I'm not too sure about that, but this tweet went viral the other day and I had to mention it in this video. But what else went down with Joker 2? Well, Culture Crave put this tweet out there. Details on the disaster. The idea for it being a musical came to Joaquin Phoenix in a dream. Not all dreams need to be made into movies. They contemplated putting on a Broadway show before committing to making a movie. I think a Broadway show would have been a lot better. In all honesty, if they had turned this into a Broadway show, I don't know for sure. I think it would have found an audience and it would have possibly been better received had it been on Broadway. Todd Phillips had free reign, with Warner Brothers wanting him to do his thing, and the film had no test screenings. Well, yeah, we talked about that before. The fact that it didn't have test screenings is mind-boggling. The film had a huge budget, $200 million, including a $20 million salary for Joaquin Phoenix, a $12 million salary for Lady Gaga, and Todd Phillips also got a $20 $20 million salary. That's insane. Just their salaries is close to the initial budget for the very first Joker film. The musical aspect was largely downplayed in marketing, with director Todd Phillips at first insisting that it wasn't one. That is very true. If you go into the movie only going off of the trailers, then you have no idea that it's going to be a musical. And I don't think a very large portion of the audience knew that going in. They just saw, oh my goodness, a trailer for the Joker 2 movie. I loved the first Joker movie. I'm going to go and check this out. And then they learned that it was a musical and they walked out. There's some viral TikToks of people walking out of this movie because they weren't expecting it to be a musical and asking the theater for their money back. Todd Phillips was secluded on a ranch during the opening weekend. I wonder why. I honestly think that he really made this knowing it wasn't going to do well, which is why he secluded himself on a ranch. And a huge cope with some of the mainstream journalists is that we as audience members, we just don't understand Todd Phillips' genius behind the film, which is why you're giving it a low rating. You're just too small-brained for his genius, and it'll probably be appreciated later on. I honestly don't think that. I absolutely love musicals, and I really disliked this one. I did not like this movie as a Joker film. I didn't even like it as a musical. Joker cinema score was a D, the lowest ever for a comic book film. That is 100% true. Joker 2 earned a D. Previously, the film that held the lowest ever comic book movie score was 2015's Fantastic Four, which received a C- cinema score. Exit polls are equally grim as audiences express their unhappiness with the anti-hero musical mashup, which did less than half the business of the first Joker, despite costing more than 3 times as much to make. The Marvels earned a B. The Flash also received a B cinema score. Having a D cinema score is a disaster for this movie. Warner Brothers Discovery is already $40 billion in debt. Yeah, they needed this movie to do well, and they are already playing damage control with this movie. When Variety came out with this article inside the Joker Folie à Deux debacle, Todd Phillips wanted nothing to do with DC on the $200 million misfire. This whole article is just damage control for Warner Brothers. Making a sequel to a billion-dollar movie, whether it's Aquaman or Joker, both sequels bombed by the way, is considered a smart bet. This is a black eye for Warner Brothers at a key time with the industry expecting a hit. The timing could not be worse. No one could get through to Todd, says one source directly involved with the film. And the one thing about genre stuff, if you don't listen and pay attention to what the fan expectations are, you're going to fail. And here's where we get to the Warner Brothers, please don't blame us, please don't turn your back on us. We want what's best for fan sort of damage control comes in, because in this article it says, in fact, catering to the fan base was supposed to be the strategy. When the Zaslav era began, the CEO touted a 10-year plan for DC that would take a page from the Marvel playbook, in which all films adhere to the singular vision of President Kevin Feige. Yet somehow, the Joker sequel was allowed to skirt that mandate, with Phillips operating in an alternate silo from the newly installed DC chiefs. Not surprisingly, the core DC fans revolted, and the result is damage to the brand. I feel like that right there is saying this was all Phillips' idea. He was a lone wolf. He wouldn't listen to reason. Do not turn your back on DC, because we have the James Gunn DCU really banking, and Warner Brothers really banking on James Gunn to launch the new DCU in the future. And this could damage that launch. It is still sitting at a 33 and a 31% on Rotten Tomatoes, but now we have this right here. Dude, the news for Joker 2 couldn't get worse. Box office, Joker Folie à Deux braces for a brutal 65% drop. Ticket sales for the Joker sequel are projected to drop by at least 60 to 65% in its second weekend, which would amount to $13 million to $15 million. However, that's on the optimistic end, and it's so funny because they're still trying to be optimistic with Joker 2. So a 60 to 65% drop being optimistic is crazy. Box office experts wouldn't be surprised if the offbeat comic book musical suffered a tragic 70 to 75% decline, putting revenues at $9 to $11 million. hobbled by poor reviews and terrible word of mouth. Joker 2 opened last weekend at a disastrous $37.6 million. Word of mouth for this movie is terrible. And it is everywhere. It's on TikTok. It's on Instagram, practically warning people, save your money and do not go and watch this film because it is nothing like the first film and it will be a complete waste of your time. And honestly, I'm not mad at that. I felt like my time was wasted investing in the first Joker movie and then going and seeing this movie. So if it's true and Joaquin Phoenix at the Venice Film Festival looked over at Lady Gaga and said it's horrible, if that is true, he's not wrong. He is on board with the rest of the people who are watching this film saying it's horrible, because that's exactly what this movie is. It is a horrible follow-up to one of the best comic book films I have ever seen. I'm very interested to see if this drop-off is what the projections are. Either way, this is terrible news for Warner Brothers, investing so much money and giving a director free reign and then fans completely rejecting the sequel. That's it for me. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.